Yeah. So this conversation is ethereal.
Now I can hear myself too.
Oh, wow. It sounds buttery. It actually sounds pretty good.
It's like velvet.
Yeah. So, Ian, what day is today?
Today's Tuesday, my friend. November 16th, I thought.
This is the first time I've ever done this, but I actually say the date on the episode being recorded. I fear that I'm going to forget what day it was.
Hey, Scott, it's Tuesday, November 16th.
Thank you, Ian. So, where are we today?
We're in Atlanta.
We're in Atlanta.
We're in Atlanta. We are in the Marriott at the airport.
We're at the epicenter of the tax epidemic that is spreading here rapidly.
There's a bunch of tax stuff going on.
It's tax contagious.
Taxing.
It's very taxing. I'll just be honest. I can't sit through a tax seminar. So I wanted to come out here and chat with you.
Yeah, I made the decision not to sit in the tax seminar, to sit out here waiting for you, knowing you would. In the afternoon of 6 hours of tax conversation, I figured you'd come out soon.
I think in a future episode, we can do the future of tax. Today, I want to talk about the future of accounting.
Okay.
I call everybody futurists, but I don't even know what that means anymore. If we're going to talk about the future of accounting, what does that even mean when I say that?
I don't say future. I say it's the evolution. Change is always present. It's come at us faster recently. It's about where you are on that journey. So some people are further ahead than others. So, are they in the future? Maybe. But we're all present within that change.
That's a key point when you said change is present, because I'm trying to stay in the present. I try to stop myself from asking you about the future of everything. I'm trying to stay in the present of what's currently going on. But at the same time, part of me thinks that the present is boring.
Well, I think if you look at where we've been for the last 2 years, the reason why the present is boring is it feels like it's been Groundhog Day. It's just a different level of change that happens in each one of those days. You look at the amount of volume,
smaller iterations of the same thing.
I think we're coming out of that period now where we were looking to just try to get above the workload that was coming in and all the needs for clients. And now we're looking at how do we look introspectively and figure out how we're going to do things differently going forward. I think that's where you're talking about the future. Mm-hmm. So where is that shift that folks are going to take on?
Well, the other part of feeling bored or wanting to change, part of getting there is accepting that some things won't change too.
No, we're talking about tax, right? I think we're now in the situation of, tax regulation changes at the last minute that are pretty pervasive, happening yearly now.
Like we have to anticipate that. We can't ever get comfortable.
No.
Then why would we impose change on ourselves or on our firm? Why would we seek that out?
Well, I think you're trying to ready the firm for whatever change it might be.
Yeah.
And you're trying to create the mechanisms by which to cope with it and to try to get ahead of where you think that change is coming from. Because what happens is if you're behind it like we were with COVID, you're behind it in terms of some of these regulations that came in that were pretty pervasive. You're playing a catch-up game, and that catch-up game is taxing. Going back to the word.
Taxing.
See how it comes right back around.
You're actually, your wordplay is fantastic today. So yeah, and nobody wants to be taxed twice.
Yeah, let alone once.
I know.
When you get taxed twice.
You don't want to have taxing on one side and then actually get taxed.
Welcome to where I live in California, where it feels like
we're getting taxed 4 times. That's like, it's the number. That's actually another good point, or like a topic here is California seems to head a lot of the change. And well, the change curve kind of starts there when it comes to tech and other things.
Yeah.
How about tax?
Well, I think that there's heavy tax policy there, but I don't think it's driving it. If you think of things like privacy, you think of data privacy, obviously, because Facebook and other things out there. I think those are things where California leads. I think East Coast leads on tax policy. I think you have to be close to where the federal government is. I think you've got areas in the states on this side that are much more. But I do think if you look at where tax policy has been driven, is mainly just in terms of if we're going to play red and blue, I think it's more from the red states than it is from the blue states.
I think I thought this tax seminar was going to end at 5:45, and it must be ending early.
It is ending early. I would say they all looked pretty taxed as well.
They look taxed. Actually, you know what? Everybody seems pretty happy. Nobody seems that stressed out ever since I've been here. So we're at the Padgett tax seminar, like we were saying, and
In Atlanta
in Atlanta
on November 16th.
on November. All right, now we're going. Now you're going too far with the dates. So going back to the present, right?
Yeah.
Presently, I'll just kind of comment on. We didn't have one last year. I guess not last year, year before. So it feels like it's been like 2
No,
years.
it was almost a 2-year gap. Yeah.
Almost a 2-year gap.
Yeah.
And so this is the first time I'm seeing a lot of these people since COVID happened.
Yeah.
And so I go really far back with them. I've had a lot of changes in the meantime, but this has stayed pretty consistent. But this is the happiest I've kind of seen everybody.
Well, I think this goes back to your point. You started this off with being the future, right? Well, this is the present. And so I feel like where we're at, it's being able to take in what we had not appreciated.
Presently, people are able to appreciate certain changes as
Yes.
well, because I think in the past, if this whole vendor row looked like it as colorful it does right now, and Karbon brings in some of the color too with that white pop, it wasn't that colorful. It was very muted. It was very stodgy.
Yeah,
And I don't think they would have welcomed that 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
I agree with you.
How has it been for you as a vendor? I guess to frame the conversation, the average age is 80. Not, I'm kidding, but these are folks that have been doing this for a while, that
Yeah.
are ready to retire.
There's a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom,
A lot of wisdom in the room.
So there's a lot of knowledge, but have they accepted this, or have they sought it out? What's your impression?
You know what the interesting thing I've seen in talking about change was, so this is my second show. So I did a show beforehand about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And the conversations I'm having with folks now is very different than I had 2 years ago. There's a couple different lenses. I'm having a lot of conversations on, I want to sell my practice, or I want to buy books of business, which was present a couple of years ago, but not at the volume that I see now. And that's because of two things. One is there's a group of folks who are tired. The last 2 years has really worn them down.
Mm-hmm.
And they need a change, and they want an exit, and they want to pass that on. And I do think that there's an age component to that. There's just where we are in the cycle of the profession.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's another side of it, which is I want to embrace this change and accelerate. And there's a group that views this as an opportunity. And those view on the opportunity, sometimes it's in the I want to buy a book of business, but it's also I've gone through this really rough period and this really difficult time frame, and I want to come out of it better. And I want to take what I learned and up my game to the next level to prepare for the change and the shifts and how things work.
You framed it perfectly, because I see that now with a lot of folks. Nobody's has a regular normal. They're seeking something different. And they're running toward it. Like, I need to sell my practice, or I need to buy more. People are buying multiple practices.
Whenever I would go to these things over the years, I would always joke that if I decided to show up to a show, it wouldn't be 3 years till I actually sold somebody. Year one, the accountants would come, they'd see the new guy out there with a banner, and no one would talk to the person because they just don't trust it, because the change is hard. Mm-hmm. Year two, they'd kind of hear the conversation from afar, but not actually get a demo. And then year three, they get a demo and maybe entertain it. What I feel like is different now is the willingness for folks to be able to look at other changes, other opportunities they could have, and take it at full value and explore it to see whether or not it fits for them, where I don't think that behavior existed previously. And so I think there's sort of the risk averseness has now, it's not that there's more risk taking, but it's more opening of your eyes on what could possibly create a better outcome for your business and your practice going forward.
So in reality, nothing's really changed except for the mindset around the change.
A lot of folks have gone through so much of it that they're not as gun shy with it.
Nothing's changed in the process of selling, like on your side, right? On your side.
The conversations I have now, and Stu and I used to really get frustrated by this. It felt like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, people wanted to change, but they actually their say-do ratio was way off. They would say one thing, but they wouldn't do it.
Oh yeah, I can relate to that. Like I've been that way a lot of my life, saying I'm going to do something, and then when it finally comes down to actually doing it, chicken out.
Yeah, but I think the conversation would take like where that would go. I mentioned the 3 years, but it was more like 7.
Sure.
But I think now it's a situation of if there's material benefit, and I'm not worried about the paradigm shift I'm going to go through.
Yeah.
I can accept that, and I'm not fearful of that change. Like I have conversations now where a lot of times we would bring up, you're like, hey, look, you want to bring a work management platform on? Sure. It's a change management journey. Now I have people coming to me going, I know I need to make this shift, and I'm cognizant of the change. Can you help me with what that change, how I can navigate that? That was not in the vernacular.
So obviously that's the correlation to they've been through some other major changes that they can handle.
Yeah.
This.
I mean, come on. You go through a pandemic, a global pandemic, then you get hit over the head with PPP and EIDL loans through the nose. Then you got cash flow forecasting that comes to you nonstop.
Well, remember, everything before the pandemic was getting kind of crazy as it
was. Yeah.
It was on fire a little bit.
So I'm just saying there's been so much gas put on the fire. And I can only lament and be empathetic about the situation that people went through 2 years, that I think most people have come to the conclusion of, yeah, it was a tough and tiring 2 years, but geez, if I can go through that,
this is a piece of
this
cake.
is a piece of cake on the back. I just need a
Nothing.
vacation and let me get to thinking about where I want to go. And I think that's where, from a profession standpoint, I'm very excited for the fact that I think there's a whole new golden era. When you're sitting in there dealing with firms going belly up, and you have to also keep your firm making money and surviving a global pandemic, this whole conversation, like, should I be charging for something? Should I, we've had this whole pricing conversation for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I'm still having that conversation.
I know,
too.
but now when you go to a client, you're like, you know what? This is what we're worth. I just think that the conversation has changed from, should I do value pricing? Well, now it's about how much value am I worth? And I am not unafraid to communicate that to somebody because, frankly, everyone here that's probably listening to this, or just, the peers in general, you realize how valuable you are.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why we got to where we were 2 years ago to where we are today was because of the backs of the accounting profession helping support psychologically, financially, all the different efforts to be able to create the programs to get people the support they needed. I mean, it was the lifeblood of the economic scenario that's in this country and around the world. It wasn't just the U.S.
So we got to experience how much we were needed, and now we have a lot more strength. I think as accountants, again, I'm speaking we as the collective sense, but we have a lot more strength to withstand anything that could be thrown at us because we have a stoic mindset. It could be worse. So my current present, I can choose and have more power over the decisions that we make and own it a little bit more. Action is still hard. Some action is hard for people to take to a certain degree, and then they fall into bad habits where they forget that mindset and they'll shift. So,
but I think it's been a bit of an awakening. I think it's interesting that you made the comment before about the age of the audience, right? But the conversations that are being had, whether you're 70, 80, 40, or 30, are now very similar in nature. And it's not about, hey, I'm just going to ride this into retirement. Now it's interesting. I had a conversation with someone that's probably in their late 60s, which was, I want to move on, I want to sell my practice, but I need to make it as beneficial for the next person and as modern as I can so that I can increase my valuation.
That's the handshake. That's bridging the gap. Because if they don't already have somebody with them to do that, then they're going to need to start doing it. And they don't want to put in that last mile before the race is over.
That's right. So that's what I'm saying. I just think I think
they're ready to put the mile in though.
And they're willing to put the effort. And that wasn't the case before. It was more like right out into the sunset and I'm just going to let it be what it was. But now I just went through this and let's take on the next piece and put it in play.
Yeah. Yeah. But they got some more stamina or some gas left in the tank to finish it right and package it up, because I think they want their whole lives, at least their livelihood has been defined, like a lot of the livelihood around owning a practice has been defined around what can I sell it for. So it comes down to money at the end of the day too. That's the other motivator.
It's a retirement fund, right? I mean, why not? you got to make the most of it. And it's hard. Stu and I were having this conversation. If you're looking at selling your practice and you just went the traditional route and you didn't do much, at most you're going to get whatever the revenue that you pulled in for the last year.
Sure.
Most likely you're going to get something like 0.6 to 1 point or 1 times.
Yeah.
If you do a little bit of modernization and you put a little bit of effort into defining it, getting it more, getting the processes going, you'll get 1 to 1.5. But there are firms pulling multiples of 4x, 5x. That's kind of the top. And that's the ones that are really pushing the needle. And that's a significant amount of money when you go from 1x to 4x. Just look at that gap.
I mean, I see one now that's going through something that looks like 3x.
Yeah.
Like that was unheard of to me, 3x. Like,
yeah.
It's just.
But you have a lot of folks coming in now that are trying to aggregate books of business together, a highly systemized way of doing it. And they're using capital from non-traditional places because they see it as a huge opportunity. And I think that's also what we in the profession see as a huge opportunity.
Well, the opportunity is coming. They're able and willing to buy more and more. And there's a lot out there that are looking to buy. So I think the frequency of buyers, because it's like a gold rush too, almost. They see the value in a lot of this. They think it's a lot of them. I mean, they're smart buyers. So they know the types of deals that they're going to get, and they know the multiples that they're willing to pay.
Yep.
And then it just comes down to ticking and tying a few boxes and figuring the last steps out.
Yeah.
So,
but again, I think that market can be, you can be a smaller firm and you can also play in that market. But if you do it, you better have gotten your house in order.
Yeah.
And it
Foundation.
the foundation needs to be there. You have to understand how to get as much margin out of what you have. And the problem has been consistent for the last 20 years. It's very hard to get talent. You're dealing with a situation where the talent growth is 0.4%, 0.6% maybe. Increased growth year over year on talent. And so I think this is where it's also inspiring. You look at what firms do today versus 2-3 years ago, and they're being very creative on how they're able to get more from, the staff and the resources they have, or where they're going to pull that staff in. Before it was I had to find the guy in my town. Now it's like I'm going to find.
I'm in the middle of that right now. Like I can very much appreciate where I currently am in the present, because that's what we've done. All of those changes that seemed very difficult, like to be able to hire somebody remotely, fully.
Yeah.
I didn't think that would be possible as soon as it was accelerated. Literally, in 2020, we were able to hire 2 people remotely, change our innards, change what's going on in the office. There's still more change that we can do, but I feel a lot better about how the firm is running because of all the changes. So we got some trash cans going on around.
Yeah, so
for all listeners, to put it in context, I think they know that it's 11/16, right? That's the date.
It's November 16th. Okay. We're in Atlanta.
We're in Atlanta,
home of where the
Braves.
We're home of the Braves that just won the championship. Yes. So everyone here is pretty excited about that. So I think I think there's just there's a lot of opportunity. I do think that folks need to take a little bit of a break. I think there's been a lot of going back to taxing. Bringing back the word. But I feel like folks owe themselves a little bit of mental break. I don't know how many people realize how much psychological toll to have to work with your clients in such a very stressful situation and put all of that on your own back. I think the profession does a great job of shielding the small businesses, but also doesn't do a good job of shedding that there's a lot of baggage there.
Yeah.
And I can see it with the people here. There's a lot of energetic conversation, but there's a lot of folks you can see like, hey, there's a lot of growing up that happened in the last 2 years that would not normally have happened.
I've noticed that too. My conversations are a lot different. They go a lot differently. It's a different level of understanding on both parties. I've always had my head in the clouds, so to speak, and that's been hard to relate. A lot of them have gone through a lot of, at least, I don't know what it is, maturity, even at an older age. It's like a different level of understanding or empathy in somebody my age's experiences and how I'm doing things. The questions are more asking with me because they actually care, instead of just asking at sneering, snickering of, what are you doing? Like, this is never going to work. It's outrageous, or this is crazy what you're doing. Now it's almost like, okay, tell me more.
Yeah. It's interesting because the way you brought that up, I viewed in the conversations that I've had, and again, you and I I'm probably a bit older than you, but not that much. there is a genuine level of how can we work together? Not I do this, you do that, sure. But now it's like, this is what I do. Can I learn from you what you're doing?
Yeah.
Because I want to incorporate that. And I don't care what you look like. I don't care how old you are. You just went through the same battle I went through. And how were you successful through that? And what can I learn from that? And that was from everybody.
That hasn't been around most of my life. Most of my life, people have their egos get in the way, and everything gets in the way of working together.
Yeah.
There are people like that. There have always been people like that in my life, but it wasn't the overwhelming majority.
Yeah.
I feel like it is now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of inquisitiveness, which didn't, in my opinion, wasn't as much there before.
The ego's in the way. I know everything already. Don't tell me something that I don't know.
Yeah. So I think that's where, the conversation is different.
Yeah.
Noticeably different. And I think there's also, again, this is my second time being out on the road. So for everybody out there, it's my second time wearing pants.
Ian's been inside the room with the foosball table.
Exactly. I got the foosball table in the back. I got my sunroom that makes it look like I'm in the witness protection program.
He's been in there for 5 years.
Pretty much. It's like my hobbit hole. But, not only is everyone wearing pants for the first time, because now we're not in a Zoom meeting where it's only got your upper body.
There you go, yes.
But
we all wear pants.
But I think everyone is glad to be social again. And I think there's a real appreciation. I honestly think 2022, I was telling folks that I think that, there's going to be a lot of people out on the road, a lot of people meeting up, a lot of sharing ideas. So I think the mantra for 2022 is sharing, learning, and developing further.
Yeah. So there we go. We're already in the future. Because this is 11/16/2021.
That's right.
Just to be clear, the date. November 16th, 2021. We're in Atlanta. I think we can sign off right now.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Appreciate it. Yeah. See you guys.